There are also two skills I'm going to mention right now. I mentioned these at the beginning when Halima asked a question about it. Two things we can talk about. One is using statements or questions, in particular using questions rather than statements. Another thing we can think about is the difference between our intentions and our impact. And to finish out class tonight, I'm going to talk about these two skills. Statements versus questions, intentions versus impact. Let's start with statements versus questions. I like to use this analogy that statements are often, well, I'd like to first of all say that statements can be more damaging than questions. They can be more likely to trigger an emotional hijack in someone. And the analogy I like to use is that statements occupy space. They occupy space in a way that questions may or may not. If I make a strong statement, these sales figures are wrong. All right, that is something in between me and the person I'm talking to that has to be dealt with. It has to be analyzed for a potential threat. I could pose that in a different way. I could say, do we need to look again at those sales figures? Is there something wrong with these sales figures? Now, there's certainly a way I could ask a question that would trigger an emotional hijack. I don't want you to think that that's not possible. But I just like to use the analogy that statements occupy space in a way that questions may or may not. So if given a choice, we often want to think about how we can pose things as questions rather than statements. Statements occupy space, requires threat assessment. Statements could trigger an amygdala response. Statement is less negotiable, less need for cerebral engagement, whereas a question gets us thinking. Absolute statements occupy more space and are even less negotiable. The more absolute I make that statement, the less need there is for whoever I'm talking to think rationally about responding to it. That person just might think of it as a threat. I was thinking about this earlier this afternoon. I was having a discussion with my dad, and he said something about the new iMac Retina display that Apple was coming out with. And he said, you know, the new iMac thing, this, Retina, whatever. And I got a little confused, and I said, oh, you mean to say MacBook? No, that's what you mean to say. It sounds weird when you say iMac. So you should say MacBook. So that's what I said to my dad. And he gets upset by this. He says, no, the term is iMac. And so he pulls out the email and says, I just got this email from Apple. It says iMac. And like shows it to me. It says, it's iMac, see? You were wrong. And then he goes into this sort of joking about how it was just like when I was 10 years old. I always thought my dad never had anything valuable to say. And finally, after 40 years, I'm glad I can teach you something. So, he was threatened by my statement. I said, no, the word is not iMac, it's MacBook, and iMac sounds weird. I should have posed that as a question. I could have said, isn't it MacBook Pro? Is that the right way to say it? Is that what you're talking about? Am I confused? But it was not only threatening to him, because it was just threatening to his whole value as a parent, really. That's why I had to bring up when I was 10 years old. And finally, he was able to teach me something. So, I favor thinking about questions versus statements when possible. Sometimes statements are necessary. I'm not saying you walk around asking questions all the time. When it's necessary to make a clear statement, you may have to make a clear statement. But if possible, think if you can rephrase that as a question. May not occupy space, less cerebral engagement, or engage the cerebral cortex. Any comments on this? Other technique I want to teach you about social management is this, or not really technique, just this concept you want to talk about, the difference between intentions and impact. So when we go through our social and professional lives and we have conversations, We say things, we do things, we have certain intentions when we say and do those things. And on the other end, the way those things are received has a sometimes different impact. Question I want to start with is, how do we judge ourselves? Do we judge ourselves by our intentions or our impact? Intentions. We judge ourselves by our intentions. My intentions were good. You don't even know the impact, so more often than not, you're going to judge yourself by your intentions. Next question. How do other people judge you? Impact. They don't know your intentions. All they know is how you made them feel. You made them feel disrespected. You made them feel threatened. So can we see there's a problem there? We judge ourselves by our intentions. Other people judge us by our impact. So I've got this funny graph for you. Picture. Over here, we've got this lonely guy who has certain intentions. There's a certain impact on the things this lonely guy says to that guy. And there's a difference. There's this gap in how these things are interpreted. The first time I took an emotional intelligence course, the guy who taught it liked to say that so-called evil gets way too much credit in this world. Evil is not as common as we think. It's more people with good intentions and bad skills. So good intentions, bad skills, but it gets lost somewhere here and has a negative impact. Evil. In this gap between intentions and impact. So how do we bridge that gap? Anyone have any ideas? How do we connect our intentions and our impact in a way that's positive? Talk to the person, sure. Yeah, Karen?
I ask questions instead of statements.
Questions instead of statements, good ideas. Yeah, anything else? Arpit?
Have them rephrase what you said to see their interpretation of it.
Yes. Great strategy. Great plan. I like to point out that labeling is very important. Label your intention. My intention is to help your team do better. Help your team be more effective. My intention is not to criticize you. My intention is not to think about replacing you. My intention is to see what I can do to improve the performance of your team. Label. So build that bridge. I hope you like that graphic. Took me a good 45 minutes to pull those images off Amazon. Build that bridge with the label. Label the intention. Say, this is my intention. Exactly said something like that. Monitor for hijack. So you walk into someone's office, you say, my intention is to see if I can improve the performance of your team. Now I understand that may make you a little nervous. In fact, I see you getting a little bit nervous. But I want you to understand that that's my intention. It's not to criticize you. The impact is a little different. I can see you're getting upset. Label the impact. Monitor for hijack. So I guess we're looking at this from the other direction. So labeling the impact. So I see that had a negative impact on you. But I want you to understand that that is different from my intention. I've got a scenario, not really a scenario, just a template I want to look through. Actually, before that, let's discuss a little bit about the disadvantages of failing to label your intentions. What could happen if you fail to label your intentions and you have a negative impact? Karen.
Misinterpret.
Yeah, misinterpret. What else? Matthew? People hate you. That's pretty bad, right? You have good intentions, but people hate you? All because you didn't come to the emotional intelligence class? Anything else? Priya? Yeah, hurt someone's feelings, and they'll hate you. Hopefully you just hurt their feelings. And I don't think Daniel.
In situations like this, I tend to get, if I don't understand what their intentions are, so I'm very defensive, like why are you criticizing me, like.
Yeah, why are you asking me? Why are you here? Hey, why are you calling right now? Yeah, see, the person you're talking to can get very defensive if you don't clearly explain, oh,
I think it can be a wrong interpretation and as a result, wrong action.
yes. So they interpret your intention the wrong way, and they respond in a way that's even worse. It gets you even deeper into a problem. Lena?
I think it can destroy the relationship because they'll furthermore label you. Probably there's a high potential they'll label you as a problem or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Destroy the relationship. So failing to label, put someone in an emotional hijack.
Negative impressions for us.
I'm sorry, what?
Negative impressions.
Yeah, negative impressions. So you could put someone in an emotional hijack because you don't label. They could misunderstand. They could get defensive, as Daniel mentioned. Bitter, hurt feelings we talked about. Jump to the solutions, wrong solutions. So, going to go over labeling from two perspectives. First, we're going to talk about it from the initiator perspective. You walk into someone's office and you start a conversation. How can you label your intentions in a way that's going to make that impact as effective as possible? And then we'll look at it from the receiver perspective. And these are just words you can use. Simple language that makes that difference in that funny graph or picture I showed you between the evil and the gap, or the label between the gap. So, don't get confused. We are the initiator in this conversation. I walk into someone's office, I've got intentions, I'm going to monitor the impact, they're going to say something back to me, they may have intentions, and there's going to be an impact on me. So we'll start with intentions of me, the initiator, walking into the office. There's some language you can use. Just simply say, my intention is this. My goal for this conversation is this. So if you walk into Daniel's office, he's not going to get defensive and wonder what the heck you're doing there. Are you here to fire him, or are you here to, ruin his life socially? In terms of impact on the receiver, here's some language we can use. How does that sound to you? I'm asking you what the impact is on you. Do you feel like this is something that could have a positive impact? Those are ways you can build this labeling bridge. Now this person you start the conversation with may say something back, and you want to understand their intentions. You want to label their intentions for them. Am I understanding you correctly that you don't like this idea? Let me just get at the root. What's your intention in saying that back to me? Instead of saying, why are you so mad? Instead of being defensive about their reaction. You say, okay, so is your intention to tell me that you don't like this idea? Because that's a constructive argument. That's a constructive conversation we can have. You just tell me I have no authority and I should never bother you again, that's a more complicated conversation for us to turn into something constructive. So let me clarify it with that statement. And then there may be an impact on you. Again, you walked into someone's office, you started this conversation, and you want to make them understand how their response hits you. You might say, I still have concerns about it. You might use language such as the way that impacts me. Simple language that can bridge that gap. Anything to add to any of these? Let's look at this from the perspective of the receiver. So someone walks into your office. They go off about this or that. What's some language you can use to clarify their intentions, clarify the impact on you, clarify your intentions as you respond to them, and understand the impact on them after you respond. Language you can use. When someone walks into your office and says, we have a problem with this, you might ask them, is your intention to do this? Is your motivation for this project this or that? Rather than saying, why are you insulting my team? Why are you questioning my leadership? Say, so is your intention to question my leadership? You could say that. That's a more constructive way to approach that than saying, why are you doing this, or getting defensive some other way. So, okay, I was getting confused here. So you're the receiver, someone walks into your office, you clarify their intentions, and you tell them the impact that that has. So the impact that has on me is it makes me feel like you're questioning my leadership. And they may say, oh my God, that was not my intention. Let me clarify. You're going to say something back to them. You might use language such as, the reason I would like to raise some questions is this, this, and this. Instead of, that sounds like a terrible idea. Instead of, you're an idiot for even suggesting that. Say, this is my intention. I have questions, and I want you to understand why I'm asking them. And then, of course, all right, so where are we? We're the receiver. Someone walked into our office. We clarified their intentions. We said something back to them. And we want to check the impact we had on them before they walk out of our office. We might use language such as, am I making a positive impact with my ideas? Is this something you'd like to discuss further? Are you mad now because of the way I've responded to it? And we need to have a further conversation about this. What was the impact those ideas had? Was it positive? Anything to add to that? Any language you might suggest, you might use? Blake?
Am I adding value?
Yes. Where would you put that?
The last one, the impact on initiative.
Yes. Am I adding value? They might give you a straight answer with that. Great example. Anything else? All right, great. So I think that's the end. Yes, that's the end of the emotional intelligence analysis part 1. I'm going to explain to you a little bit of how next week will work, and then I will quickly go over the email assignments. We can discuss that the same way we discussed the corporate change memo. Next week, we will just practice this. We'll have some group exercises that are designed to make you frustrated. And we'll think about how we can respond positively in that frustration. We'll have some one-on-one difficult conversation scenarios. Should be fun. Yeah, some frustrating exercises. I actually had someone throw a punch during one of these exercises. Yeah, it was sort of friendly. But it was one of my proudest teaching moments. Because that was the whole point. That was the whole point of the exercise, was to try to get people to be frustrated. But it was somewhat harmless. It was this 50-year-old woman who was punching this 20-year-old kid. It's like, no, do it my way. To give him a little punch on the arm. So, we'll practice this, since we've done the analysis this week, we'll practice this in those situations next week. Let me now go over the email assignment, and if you feel like you've got enough information about the email assignment and you need to leave, I completely understand. Okay, so I started grading your corporate change memos, and I should have those done in the next couple of days. Let me actually, I'm gonna put up a slide actually. I'm gonna put up a slide from class 6 before I explain this. So talk amongst yourselves. Okay, so I will get back to you on your corporate change memo assignments, and I'll give you some feedback about that. And the way I grade both of these is based primarily on this graph. Remember I said when we're writing emails and memos, we have a business need, which is above all important. We may need to have our audience know something, we may need to get them to do something, we may need to make them feel something, persuade or assuage them. So if I see a clear violation of one of these three things, then I take a point or two off. The trick for both of these exercises is that this need to feel is important. For the corporate change memo, you wanted people to have a positive experience. For this email, you want them to have, they're an important client and you want to keep them happy. So you may need to use techniques such as this to make them feel a certain way. So I'll read over the email assignment, which is due next week. So you are a senior sales manager for a company called TechSoul, a firm that provides a vast array of IT solutions for finance companies. You have just received an angry email from the website manager of FinTrade, a small brokerage firm and an important client of TechSoul. The FinTrade representative is angry that the video on the website is taking too long to download when customers try to view it. The representative goes on to say that over the past year, she's been frustrated by the quality of most video download features on the website, and she has received numerous complaints about the live chat function. You are familiar with these problems, with the live chat function and the video download. But you know that it would cost significantly more money than FinTrade is currently paying to fix them. You also know that senior management at FinTrade is not interested in paying more money to fix the website because the company generates most of its revenue from well-established commercial clients. And FinTrade uses the website to put a friendly face on the company and to make a minimal attempt at generating individual customers as clients. So you've got this client, FinTrade. You know that most of their business is on their commercial clients. But you get an angry email from the person who is dealing with, what did I call that? Individual retail clients. So it's an important relationship, and it's a problem that may be a little delicate because they don't want to spend more money fixing that problem. Similarly, TechSoul, your company, supports the IT issues related to FinTrade's commercial clients, and the fees TechSoul collects from FinTrade, almost all of them are generated by supporting the commercial business. So everybody's more focused on the commercial business except the person who sent you this angry email. In other words, both companies are more interested in the success of the commercial business than supporting the website for individual clients. Be that as it may, the website manager is angry, and you need to address her concerns to ensure that the overall relationship with FinTrade remains positive. Please write an email to the website manager to address her concerns as best you can. So, there is information you need her to know. There may or may not be something you need her to do, but there definitely is a way you need her to feel. She needs to feel respected because this is an important relationship with the company, even though she's not involved with the revenue generating side of the relationship. So how are you going to do this? Are you going to use some of these techniques? Or do you have some other ideas of how you might address this situation? Helene.
If I understood it correctly, I would try to offer her some type of alternatives, like additional, features or something that we could throw in since we already know that we're not going to invest in fixing the problem.
Sure. Okay. So we can't fix this problem, but here's an alternative. Here's what we can do.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good strategy. What else? Matt?
Telling her how valuable she is, first of all, and we appreciate all the feedback, especially you.
Yes. So maybe some sort of buffer. In this case, the buffer is sincere. Because you truly do value this relationship. You're not just blowing smoke at her. But here's the issue. Okay, come on.
Yeah, as much as you value her, I think it's important to reiterate in terms of the business standpoint, you know, the website is not the heavy revenue generator, so any way that we can fix the problems using no costly, you know, financial would be the most effective way and the only way to fix it, because, you know, we don't want to put any more money into it, so.
Yeah, so offering alternatives could be good, but you do have to be honest.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, you do have to be honest and tell her that this is a situation, but you want to think of a way to say that sensitively. Any other idea? No?
Maybe emphasize with her and say, you know, I understand your frustration and this is challenging.
Yeah, sure. As long as she doesn't think you're just blowing smoke. I understand. Sorry, it's another way to do it.
I mean, similar to your model, I think it's like explaining rationale.
Explain rationale. Yeah. We talked about how if you could explain the rationale and the person reading your correspondence ideally might say, gosh, I would have done the same thing. That's a dream situation. Anything else? Mike?
Can you go over the line by stepping, say we only have a certain amount to work with, this is what we have to work with, this is the best that we can do, hope you understand, and maybe, you know, if there's something that we can offer you.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I said. You need to be honest about that. But at the same time, you need that information to be received well. Because she has some power and influence because she is part of a company that is a very important client. So absolutely. I think you all get the idea. Just handle that information honestly, but use some of these skills to make sure it is well received. Any other questions at all? All right, I look forward to seeing you all next week.
I'm serious.
Oh, no, I wouldn't dare.
No, I'm serious. I drive slow. I want to. I take halfway. Yes, I take halfway and halfway. So if you want, I'm fine.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I get money and I study. Right now, the stay in my mother's house.
Oh, good. So you don't have to
No.
go from the train to
Thank you anyway.
Oh, anyway. What does it mean anyway? I
Anyway.
voted for you.
No.
Anyway. Anyway,
That's
you
the
said
wrong
only
pretext.
way.
That's the wrong.
Only way.
No, that's the wrong pretext from me. You understand that?
Yes, I understand
I was
this.
going to say, thank you again. I was going to say that.
Yes, thanks again.
Yeah, good luck.
Oh, yeah.
So, coming my dependent
Oh, no, he's on his way.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good
On the
night.
PR part, get more.
Yeah, actually, I have one person. I do. Okay.
Have a great day.
Yeah. CPA for this meeting.
Not until 2 weeks later.
干这事儿太直接，他干这事儿最烦人了。I have to go to my locker room.
We're running against each other. Thanks for eating on me now.
You know what? Best wishes. Two great men.
We do great work. Yeah.
Professor,
Yes, me.
that was a really nice class.
Oh, great. I'm
I
glad you
really
liked
like
it.
your class. I tell my husband about you how interesting it is. And